Hey everyone, you're here with Dr. Fullstack. So we're going to go over what's required in order to deploy our front end. You can go ahead and deploy this on Vercel if you'd like, but if you don't want to be married to Vercel and you want to be able to deploy all of this in the same environment, then I suggest you watch the rest of this video. So when you're setting up your front end for the Livekit agent that you would like to deploy, make sure that you do have in the next config, if you're utilizing Next.js for the front end, output : standalone. And I actually have it in the wrong space there. So let me bring it up here and now we're good to go. My apologies for that. Now at this point, so here we're using Next.js, which is pretty much React.js, just with a framework. And at this point, we have all of our code for the actual front-end agent. You don't need your OpenAI key for this one because it's going to be referenced by that backend agent that we talked about in the last video. So what we're going to want to do here is set up the Docker file for this. What if you don't know how to do that? Well, I've got a treat. Head over to drfullstack.com. Once you head over there, hit enter dashboard. It's absolutely free. And what you'll do is head over to front-end Docker. Now this entire tutorial will walk you through how to actually set up the front-end Docker file. So let's start the tutorial. Here we have our base image as always. Now we're going to go ahead and utilize this command. It's also setting up the directory that we spoke of before. Pretty much which folder are we setting up in our application to have all of the rest of the commands that come subsequently. Now using Slim, the Node.js Slim, which is pretty popular, will keep our Docker image really small so that we can run multiple images, or rather multiple containers, on a single virtual machine. If you've got lots of clients or you don't have a huge budget, well then this is a good idea for you. So let's go ahead and copy both of these. As I mentioned here, using the Slim variant reduces image size while maintaining compatibility with Node.js dependencies. So over here, I'm going to go ahead. Awesome. So at this point, let's go check out the next step. So the next step here is the dependencies layer. And that's going to tell us what is the dependencies that we want to install for this dedicated layer. So here we're saying from base, because we've set this as pretty much a variable for the base layer. We're going to say from base as deps, which essentially is going to set up these dependencies. And here we have copy package.json and package-lock.json into the current directory, which happens to be app. Now we're running npm CI, and that's going to allow us to install just the bare minimum of what we need so that we don't have a bunch of node modules that we only need it for our local development version, but not in our production version. So here, using npm CI ensures exact versions from package-lock.json are installed for better consistency. So let's go ahead and take this part, copy it, head over here, and we'll paste that right in there. So for the next step, we're going to have our build layer. So we're going to set up a separate stage for building the Next.js application. We need to copy node modules from the deps stage to preserve the dependency cache. And we're going to build a separate stage so that we keep the build tools out of the final image. Now here, we're going to copy from deps. So from our deps over here. So /app, because remember we're in the app directory, node modules. We're going to copy that into the current directory. And then we're going to copy everything else. Now we're going to run npm run build. So let's go ahead and copy these commands. Notice we've specified the work directory once again. So we're over here, and let's paste that in there. Awesome. Now let's go to the next step. Runtime image. So create the final runtime image with production settings. Well, here, again, we can set up node-env equals production. So we're just letting this know that this is the production environment. And we're also going to specify the port, 8080. And then we're going to expose that port over here. So let's go ahead and do just that. Notice that we specify that the image is node 20-slim as runner, because this is for the final runtime image. So here we see setting node dash, or rather underscore env equals production optimizes Node.js for performance rather than development experience. So here, let's take all of these commands and copy that right over here. Awesome. So at this point, we're now going to set up our application for a standalone output only. So this allows us to copy only the necessary build output files from the builder stage. Next.js standalone output contains only what's needed to run the application, reducing image size significantly. So at this point, what we'll do is we'll copy from here to here. It's going to copy all the dependencies in that standalone folder, and that you may not see when you're running locally, but in production, Next.js, depending on your configuration, will create a standalone folder, and you can utilize that to have all the files needed for your application in production. If you don't have a public folder, then you can ignore that, because I don't want you guys to get an error. Anything that isn't here will give you an error. In my case, I do have a public folder. If you want to create a public folder and not put anything in it, that's also fine. So at this point, let's go ahead and copy this here and paste that right in there. Awesome. So at this point, we can go to the next line. Now, this is going to go ahead and copy our .env. Now, notice for production, using Docker secrets or runtime environment variables instead of the .env files. Over here, I just want to really make sure that this works for you guys. So we're going to copy the .env environment file, and we're going to copy the .env.local. Now, I could have put a star on there, but I want to make sure that all of this is clear as daylight, because there is a lot of pretty fastidious commands here, and I want to make sure that this makes sense for you. So at this point, let's take this here. Notice that it's going to read from the root folder. Now, you can go ahead and make sure that you do have those files in there. Let's go ahead and hit enter here, paste that in there. If you don't have a .env.local, you can just ignore that. I'm just copying both because I want to make sure everything is easy as pie. The next step, we're going to go ahead and create and switch to a non-root user for improved security. So what that does here is running as a non-root is a security best practice to limit potential vulnerabilities. Now this is the same with the back end, but in this front end, we do want to have the same exact approach. So here, we'll take this and we'll copy that over. Okay, sweet. So now we've arrived to the last step, and that is the startup command. Define the command to start the Next.js server. So remember, Next.js has a server that's running that front end for you. So at this point, we can grab this last command, which is command space square brackets node comma server.js in quotes. Okay, sweet. Let's go ahead and paste that in there. Now, I do want to note that for your .env variables, you don't want to have quotes on any of them. So for the values, do not put quotes. Just have the key equals and then the value. If you have quotes, you may find that a few errors appear that you didn't expect. So make sure you don't have quotes. That's all. We've now finished the lesson. For the Docker file, we've covered the back end as well as the front end. And if you don't remember any of this, that's absolutely fine. Just head over to drfullstack.com. That's drfullstack.com. And that'll allow you to understand front and back what's going on here. We also have frequently asked questions, a little bit more documentation where you can cover things in depth, and it's absolutely free. So why not check it out?